We're beginning the Terre Mountain, Bolivia, May 1978 incident of Magic Eyes Only, Earth's Encounters with Extraterrestrial Technology by Ryan S. Wood. The genesis of this case can be traced to a United States Department of State telegram transmitted from the American Embassy in La Paz, Bolivia, to the U.S. Secretary of State, Washington, D.C. on 15 May 1978, captioned Report of Fallen Space Object. It stated, 1. The Bolivian newspapers carried this morning article concerning an unidentified object that apparently recently fell from the sky. The paper quotes a Latin correspondence story from the Argentine city of Salta. The object was discovered near the Bolivian city of Bermejo and was described as egg-shaped metal and about 4 meters in diameter. The Bolivian Air Force plans to investigate to determine what the object might be and from where it came. I have expressed our interest and willingness to help, they will advise. Request the department check with appropriate agencies to see if they can shed some light on what this object might be. The general region has had more than its share of reports of UFOs this past week. Requests a reply ASAP. The Department of State was not the only branch of the government that took an interest in the case, as a CIA report also of 15 May 1978 makes clear. Many people in this part of the country claim they saw an object which resembles a soccer ball falling behind the mountains on the Argentine-Bolivian border, causing an explosion that shook the earth. This took place on May 6th. Around that time, some people in San Luis and Mendoza provinces reported seeing a flying saucer squadron flying in formation. The news from Salta confirms that the artificial satellite fell on Terre Mountain in Bolivia, where it has already been located by authorities. The same sources said that the area where the artificial satellite fell has been declared an emergency zone by the Bolivian government. An examination of the CIA's declassified UFO files reveals a second report that references the crash and adds further data. On 16 May 1978, entitled Reports Conflict on Detail of Fallen Object, the document reads, We have requested another phone call from our audience requesting confirmation of reports that an unidentified object fell on Bolivian territory near the Argentine border. We can only say that the Argentine and Uruguayan radio stations are reporting on this even more frequently, saying that Bolivian authorities have urgently requested assistance from the United States National Aeronautics and Space Administration in order to determine the nature of that which crashed on a hill in Bolivian territory. Just a few minutes ago, Radio El Espectador of Montevideo announced that there was uncertainty as to the truth of these reports. Argentine sources indicated that they border with Bolivia. What? Must be a typo. Argentine sources indicated that they border with Bolivia had been closed, but that it might be reopened. They also reported that an unidentified object had fallen on Bolivian soil near the Argentine border, and that local Bolivian authorities had requested aid from the central government, which in turn had sought assistance from the U.S. National Aeronautics and Space Administration to investigate the case. A La Paz newspaper said today that there is a great interest in learning about the nature of the fallen object, adding that local authorities, for security reasons, had cordoned off 200 kilometers around the spot where the object fell. The object is said to be a mechanical device with a diameter of almost 4 meters, which has already been brought to Tarija, There is interest in determining the accuracy of these reports, which have spread quickly throughout the continent, particularly in Bolivia and its neighboring countries. Is it a satellite or a meteorite or a false alarm? On 18 May 1978, the U.S. Embassy in La Paz again forwarded a telegram to the Secretary of State, Washington, D.C. Classified secret, the telegram disclosed the following. Preliminary information provided has been checked with appropriate government agencies. No direct correlation with known space objects that may have re-entered Earth's atmosphere near May 6 can be made. However, we continue to examine any possibilities. Your attention is invited to State Airgram A6343, July 26, 1973, which provided background information and guidance for dealing with space objects that have been found. In particular, any information pertaining to the pre-impact observations, direction or trajectory, number of objects observed, time of impact, and a detailed description including any markings would be useful. 6 days later, a communication was transmitted from the U.S. Defense Attaché Office in La Paz to a variety of U.S. military and government agencies and departments, including NORAD, the Air Force, and the Department of State. This office has tried to verify the stories put forth in the local press. The Chief of Staff of the Bolivian Air Force told DATT/AIRA this date that planes from the BAF have flown over the area where the object was supposed to have landed. In their search, they drew a blank. Additionally, DATT/AIRA talked this date with the commander of the Bolivian Army and informed DATT that the Army's search party directed to go into the area to find the object had found nothing. The Army had concluded that there may or may not be an object, but to date nothing has been found. The CIA's report of 15 May 1978 clearly stated that the object had fallen to Earth on Terre Mountain, Bolivia, and had already been located by authorities. Furthermore, the following day, the CIA learned that the object had been brought to Tarija. In contrast, the Bolivian Army and Air Force advised the U.S. Defense Attaché Office that their search for the mysterious object had drawn a blank and nothing was found. Was the CIA misinformed, or were the Bolivians keeping the Department of State in the dark? Regardless of the answers to those questions, the story does not end there. Tantalizing information suggests that the object was indeed recovered by the U.S. authorities, or at least with the assistance of U.S. authorities, and that both the CIA and NASA, NASA, played key roles in the case. In June 1979, researcher Leonard Stringfield was contacted by an Argentinian investigator, Nicolas Ojeda, who had interesting data to impart concerning the crash. According to Ojeda, there is a report of a group of investigators who vanished mysteriously in the area. I really think something big happened in Salta, NASA investigated, but there was no news of it. I have to tell you that in La Paz, Bolivia, a huge Hercules C-130 carried something from the area where the UFO crashed. In addition, Stringfield's research led to a disclosure that a CIA source known to the researcher, Bob Berry, confirmed that the C-130 flight took place and that he was aboard the aircraft. No comment was the reply that Berry received when the issue of the aircraft's cargo was raised. The available evidence still did not answer the crucial question: what was it that crashed at Bermejo, Bolivia in May 1978? The possibility that the object was a meteorite almost certainly can be discounted, primarily because of the description given in the Department of State's telegram of 15 May. The object was egg-shaped, metal, and about 4 meters in diameter. What of the possibility that the object was a man-made satellite? That theory was thrown into doubt by the Department of State's secret telegram of 18 May, which clearly stated no direct correlation with known space objects that may have entered the Earth's atmosphere near 6 May can be made. In this light, the CIA statement that people in San Luis and Mendoza provinces reported seeing a flying saucer squadron flying in formation, and the revelations of the Department of State that the general region has had more than its share of reports of UFOs in the past week must be considered significant. To this day, the true nature of the events on Terror Mountain, Bolivia in May 1978 remained enshrouded in mystery. Oregon, USA, June 1979. Admittedly lacking in detail, an incident was reported to researcher Bruce Moulton of Indiana that occurred on 27 June 1979 in a wild area of forested mountains in southeastern Oregon. A former Marine allegedly involved in the event informed Moulton that a circular object with a low dome had crashed deep within the forested area in question, damaging trees and depositing an amount of unusual debris in the vicinity that was describing as being similar to fresh cast iron and of extremely light weight. Crates were loaded onto helicopters to transport the material from the site, which was then cleaned up by the military. Of course it was. Next incident, Santa Cruz, Bolivia, August 1979. 15 months after the curious events at Bermejo, Bolivia, a somewhat similar event took place in the Santa Cruz region of Bolivia. According to documentation declassified under the terms of the Freedom of Information Act and made available by the Defense Intelligence Agency, on late afternoon, 8 August 1979, the embassy here received information that a strange object had been found on a farm near Santa Cruz, Bolivia. Sources stated that the object was about 70 centimeters in diameter and 2 meters in circumference, with a hole in one side and a metal skin covering of approximately 1/2 inch thickness. Later, the object was described as about 3 times the size of a basketball. A recent report filed shortly afterwards demonstrated that U.S. authorities were taking a considerable interest in the incident. A second fireball fell from the sky in the early morning of the same day that the first one was found near Cotoca. This second one was found 200 kilometers north of the city of Santa Cruz on the farm of Juan Saavedra by the campesino Gonzalo Menajo Vivares. The place is in the area of Buen Retiro near the Yapacane River. According to the information given by the campesino, around 12:30 a.m. on Friday last week, he heard a loud whistling sound and saw a fireball by an explosion. He said that the next evening, a silent aircraft that had 3 lights was flying over the explosion area. After dawn on Friday morning, the campesino started looking around the area of the impact and found a sphere. And as it was not heavy, he took it home where he kept it until his friend Nathaniel Mendez Hurtado learned of the other sphere in Cotoca and passed on information concerning this second sphere. The mystery of finding these two spheres exactly alike is that, according to the witnesses, they were fireballs. That is to say that these spheres became real balls of fire when they entered the atmosphere because of the friction, and after a high-speed fall they hit the ground. However, in the area where they've been found, there were no signs of the impact, and it looks as though the spheres landed smoothly. Notably, the documentation concerning the sphere recoveries states the U.S. authorities had received a roll of 35mm film for color prints and a roll of Kodak Chrome 40 movie film. The 35mm film will be developed and printed here in La Paz. The movie film will be forwarded to DIA. Questions abounded. From where did the spheres originate? What was the silent aircraft that flew directly over the crash site the following evening? And how had the spheres negotiated a smooth landing? An attempt to possibly answer at least some of those questions by examining the relevant photographs and film footage failed when the DIA stated in response to a FOIA request that the material could not be located. While some have argued that this case involved nothing stranger than fallen space debris or terrestrial origin, the questions concerning the silent aircraft and the fact that the objects did appear to have landed smoothly leave this case wide open and suggest a potentially more exotic origin than mere rocket or satellite detritus. Okay, the Modesto, California, 1979 incident. According to the late Leonard Stringfield on 11 September 1979, hey, today's September 11th. When do you know? He was contacted by Randall Clement, a dispatcher in a communications center for a California-based law enforcement agency, who informed him that at approximately 7 p.m. the previous evening, a UFO had possibly crashed in the Modesto area of California. Clement advised Stringfield that he had been on duty when two officers reported seeing a green luminous object flying at a low level over Shasta County and descending on a southerly course. While linked by phone with the National Alert Warning System, Clement said he received confirmation that the jets had been scrambled in an attempt to intercept the object, which was described as wobbling in its flight like a pendulum. Stringfield added that other sources had informed him that this falling leaf-like behavior was indicative of a troubled UFO. The outcome of this case remains unknown. The Rendlesham Forest Incident, Suffolk, England, in December 1980. Although the famous UFO incident at Rendlesham Forest, Suffolk, England, in December 1980 has been the subject of a half a dozen books and is considered by many to be an example of a UFO landing event rather than a crash, there are several indicators that something may have been retrieved from the forest. The basics of the account are that between 26 and 29 December 1980, multiple UFO encounters occurred with Rendlesham Forest that involved U.S. military personnel and possibly British personnel too. Based at the nearby Royal Air Force stations Bentwaters and Woodbridge, according to numerous United States Air Force personnel, a small triangular object was seen maneuvering in the forest. Some witnesses also described strange, almost spectral alien-style entities. In a 31st July 1994 lecture at Leeds, England, Charles Halt, retired Colonel, United States Air Force, Woodbridge Deputy Base Commander in 1980, and one of those who witnessed the strange object, divulged his recollections of what had occurred 14 years previously. During his lecture, Halt astounded the audience by revealing something hitherto unknown. An unscheduled C-141 transport aircraft arrived at Woodbridge just hours after the initial encounter, and a group of special individuals departed from the aircraft, headed straight out to Woodbridge's east gate, and disappeared into the forest. The C-141 is a huge aircraft able to carry freight vehicle payloads or alternatively up to 200 troops, ample cargo space to secret a relatively small object of unknown origin, and the Rendlesham vehicle was as the Rendlesham vehicle was described. It may be relevant that during its life as an active military station, Royal Air Force Woodbridge was home to a squadron with an intriguing history, as Captain John E. Boyle of the U.S. Air Force reveals. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, the 67th Aerospace Rescue and Recovery Squadron, stationed at Royal Air Force Woodbridge, provided standby rescue coverage for the American space flights. Of course, they were never needed to provide emergency rescue actions, but at the same time, the unit was trained and available to rescue astronauts with their HH-53 and HC-130 aircraft. In early 1988, the 67th ARRS was redesignated as part of the 39th Special Operations Wing, their primary mission changing from that to rescue to supporting U.S. Special Operations Forces. Their secondary mission remains that the secondary mission remains that of search and rescue, and they would provide any assistance necessary in future space missions. Although the 67th rescue and recovery skills were not needed during NASA's space missions, the question has to be asked: were they implicated in the recovery of something that originated with somebody else's space program in December 1980? The Junc Rainforest, Puerto Rico incident of 1984. Numerous witnesses reported that on 19 February 1984, an unidentified aerial object crashed deep in the heart of Puerto Rico's mountainous Junc rainforest. The object was described by most as being circular in shape, white in color, and flying erratically before crashing into the rainforest. In the wake of the event, according to researcher Jorge Martin, a diversionary tactic was put in place to the effect that the object had been nothing stranger than a meteorite. However, sources on the island interviewed by Martin reported seeing a large presence of military personnel in the area, evidence of NASA's operatives on the scene, and even a piece of metal retrieved from the forest and loaded into wooden crates by unknown individuals and dispatched to an unspecified location. The Victor Harbor incident of Australia, May 1986. Calls for crashed UFO probe was the headline that appeared in the 1st June 1986 edition of the South Australian Sunday Mail newspaper. The headline and accompanying article detailed an event that had occurred 1 week earlier on 24 May. Similar headlines appeared in numerous other newspapers, including The Sun, The Advertiser, and The Border Watch, which collectively told a remarkable story. It was around midday, 24 May 1986, that numerous witnesses saw a family-sized car object crash in Encounter Bay, Victoria Harbour, just off the South Australian coastline. Literally dozens of people from Mount Gambier, Robe, Kingston, Salt Creek, and even those Western Australia saw the unknown object as it hurtled through the air to its final destination in 120 feet of water in Encounter Bay. Senior Police Constable G.A. Clemtow of Beachport said that he had and several other Beachport residents had seen a large smoke-colored vapor trail left by the object as it sped past cloud height. Another witness said it looked like a falling star, but in broad daylight. Neil Sutherland of nearby Thornley was able to get a closer look at the object and reported that it was tubular with at least one red tail fin. He said that it came from the northeast overland and headed downwards over the southeast towards the sea. He added, "It definitely looked like a big missile to me." Curiously, the official response from both Police and Royal Australian Air Force (RAAF) was that neither planned to search for the object, which had apparently sunk in the 184-meter deep water. 184, how did I get that number? Sunk in the 40-meter deep water. 24 hours later, speculation was circulating in the media that the object was the remains of a spy satellite that had re-entered Earth's atmosphere and at least partially survived its flight before crashing into the appropriately named Encounter Bay. As the media noted, according to an Adelaide airport spokesman, the trajectory and approach of the falling object suggested it was the re-entry of a satellite on a polar orbit. This is the type of orbit used by low-flying spy and land resource satellites to enable them to cover the whole Earth by traversing it from pole to pole. It was also noted that if the device was a foreign space satellite, it was highly unlikely that anyone would claim custody of it, as demands for an explanation of the crash circulated and steadily increased. Major Andy Reynolds, a Defense Department spokesperson in Adelaide, stated, "There will be no official Defense Department investigation. I can state with certainty this object was not a pilotless aircraft or targeted drone as had been suggested. These types of aircraft are used, but not in this case in this area." Major Reynolds added, "There is no attempt to cover up, and I am willing to take any written account of the sighting." Officially, the Royal Air Force concluded that the object was most probably a meteorite. However, this description did not sit well with many of the witnesses, who openly scoffed at the official version of events. Off-course missile pilotless drone, spy satellite, meteorite, or UFO, the secret of whether it was the crash in Encounter Bay persists to this day. Western Kentucky incident of March 1987. Briefly described by researcher Leonard Stringfield, this case concerns the discovery on a ranch in western Kentucky in March 1987 of the skeletal remains of two humanoid entities and a burned-out circle about 4 feet in diameter in an open grassy field. The property was reportedly owned by a retired medical doctor, a friend of Cincinnati radio host Bill Boshears, who arranged for Stringfield to speak directly with the source. According to the doctor, the bodies had large skulls, cat-like jaws, a barrel-like rib cage, and long arms equipped with 3 fingers. The doctor quickly contacted local law enforcement personnel and was blessed the following day with a visit from the Air Force. A colonel informed the doctor that he was there to clean up the area and remove the skeletal remains for official examination. The doctor himself was taken to an unnamed military base for interrogation, where he was shown photos of other alien corpses, and he had the fear of God put into him by the military. Although the doctor reportedly expressed interest in Stringfield's research and agreed to stay in touch, Stringfield did not hear from them again. Moving on to the Dahlinsgork incident of the former Soviet Union, 1988. A Central Intelligence Agency document dated 22nd November 1989 and declassified under terms of the Freedom of Information Act includes 4 pages of material prepared by the Foreign Broadcast Information Service production group that focused upon sightings of unidentified flying object in various parts of the Soviet Union. The report states, Setting the tone for this media coverage was an article of 9 July 1989, Socialistcheskia Industria, which referred to many recent reports of UFO sightings in the USSR. Interviewed by the newspaper, P. Propenko, director of a laboratory for the study of anomalous phenomena, stated that a permanent center for the study of UFOs is being established in the Soviet Union. In addition to conducting research and presenting lectures on UFOs, the center will support the investigation of reported sightings. The document then elaborates on an alleged UFO crash incident that had reportedly occurred at some point within the previous 18 months. In referring to an issue of the paper published in July 1988 that included a report of an amazing event that took place on Hill 611 near the village of Dahlinsgork in Primorski Krai. The article noted that the event is still under investigation. Many observers saw a flying sphere crash into one of the hill's twin peaks. The physicists and other scientists from the Siberian Division of the USSR Academy of Scientists are still studying the fine-meshed, small spherical objects and pieces of glass that are considered to be small remnants left behind by the sphere. According to the article, the alleged spacecraft was nearly obliterated in the crash, but there appears to be enough material at the site for the scientists, a mixture of UFO enthusiasts and skeptics, to eventually penetrate this mystery. The CIA report continues. In studying the site, scientist A. Makiev reported finding gold, silver, nickel, alpha titanium, molybdenum, and compounds of beryllium. One of the skeptical physicists from Tomsk has hypothesized that the so-called sphere could have been some kind of plasmoid formed by the interaction of geophysical force fields, which captured the elements found by Makiev from the atmosphere on its trajectory toward disintegration on the hilltop. Other researchers have generally rejected this explanation since the amounts of various types of metals found at the site would imply, according to the plasmoid theory, that the concentration of metals in the atmosphere should exceed the present level by a factor of 4,000. Some of the scientists have concluded that the object that crashed into Hill 611 was an extraterrestrial space vehicle constructed by highly intelligent beings. Doctor of Chemical Sciences V. Vistoysky stated that without doubt, this is evidence of a high technology and is not anything of natural or terrestrial origin. He cited the fact that remains of fine mesh included bits of thin thread with a diameter of only 17 microns, and that these threads in turn were composed of even thinner strands twisted into braids. Extremely thin gold wires were discovered intertwined in the finest threads, evidence of an intricate technology beyond the present capabilities of terrestrial science, according to Vistoysky. Not everyone was in agreement with Vistoysky. However, as the document notes, physicist Yuri Paltov of the Terrestrial Magnetism Institute does not believe the claims of scientists who maintain they have found remnants in the Dahlinsgork of a UFO constructed by extraterrestrials, and he is convinced that the materials found at the site are really only remnants of the unsuccessful launch of a Soviet rocket in the region. He believes that many of the other reports of UFOs can be explained by the inability of the observers to recognize the phenomenon known as ball lightning. According to the CIA, another Russian scientist also commented on the alleged crash of a UFO at Dahlinsgork and on the reported UFO crash at Roswell, New Mexico in July 1947. The 19th through 25th of October 1989 issue of Poisk magazine article contrasted Paltov's view with that of another physical scientist, Vladimir Ahaza, who was recently elected chairman of the All-Union Commission for the Study of Unidentified Flying Objects of the Union of Scientific and Engineering Societies. Oh, man, the USSR had a thing with names, didn't they? Ahaza compared reports of a UFO crash in the USSR with a claim by UFO enthusiasts in the United States that a UFO crashed in the desert near Roswell, New Mexico in 1947. He believes there is sufficient evidence to support the claims of UFO crashed in both cases, in Dahlinsgork and in Roswell. In the latter case, he cites the testimony of eyewitnesses who maintained that they had seen the bodies of 4 extraterrestrials lying near the smashed spacecraft. According to Paltov, however, the eyewitnesses in the Roswell case were mistaken. He believes that the object that crashed was a United States Air Force experimental rocket with 4 rhesus monkeys aboard that had the accident was the result of an unsuccessful launch attempt at the dawn of the space era. The document reveals nothing more on the Dahlinsgork incident nor the Roswell controversy. Chatelaine, Staffordshire, England incident of July 1991. According to researcher and author Jenny Randles, in July 1991, source ML of Chatelaine, Staffordshire, England, was visiting friends in the area of Churchnet Valley, east of Stoke-on-Trent, when at 10 p.m. he saw an unusual object fall from the sky in the Ipstones area. The object was described to Randles as being metallic in appearance, rather like aluminum, and was 10 feet long, cigar-shaped, and very bright. The witness wasted no time in contacting the local police. Come daylight, the police began a search of the vicinity, concentrating their efforts on an area of woodland where the object was seen to descend. It was evident that the matter was being treated seriously when a police helicopter was drafted to lend assistance. Randles revealed that no object was ever found, but the police did locate something of interest in an area of newly broken branches that gave the impression that something had crashed through the trees from above. Next incident of South Haven Park, Long Island, USA, November 1992. How long is this? According to John Ford of the Long Island UFO Network, a number of motorists traveling on Long Island's Sunrise Highway on the night of 24 November 1992 contacted him to report what they thought was a plane going down into South Haven Park at around 7 p.m. that night. Eyewitness accounts have confirmed that a fire was reported immediately after, Ford told the South Shore Press. In addition, the roads around the park were blocked to travel by the county and park police. The next day, and for a few days after, the park was closed to the public. One local resident who lived near the park said that for 5 to 6 days after the incident, his house experienced numerous power surges. In addition, he said, for the next few days there were a lot of military helicopters going over the park, and I couldn't get in. Records do show that South Haven Park was closed between 25 and 28 November 1992, according to park officials. However, the park was closed to the general public that week because it was reserved for duck hunting. A week later, Ford's group finally gained access to the park. We found an area that was burned out and some trees were bent over, Ford said. A section looked like it had been plowed over by machinery. We were getting a higher than normal radiation reading in the area, higher than regular background radiation. Ford later received what he had been waiting and hoping for, a purported video of the crash. A copy of the tape was subsequently provided to the South Shore Press. According to them, it shows people examining a bright reddish metallic type object about 4 square feet that appears to be emitting a white cloudy gas, and a hissing sound can be heard. A sight and sound that resembles dry ice that had been exposed to warmer temperatures. The next shot shows what appears to be a person trying to lift up a body near a tree, but the poor quality video of the film makes positive identification impossible. Ford's conclusions about the South Haven incident were unequivocal. We believed an extraterrestrial craft with aliens crashed that night in the park, and we were out to prove it. To this day, however, the controversy surrounding the events at South Haven Park continues. The incident of Boscombe Down, England, September 1994. At approximately 11 p.m. on 26 December 1994, all hell metaphorically broke loose when an unusual vehicle crash landed on the runway at the British government's highly sensitive Boscombe Down facility. As rumors began to circulate among the UFO research community and the media, numerous theories were put forth attempting to explain the case: that the object was a UFO, that it was some form of next-generation stealth aircraft, or that it was one of the so-called flying triangles that have been reported throughout the planet for the last several decades. Unusual things had been afoot in the immediate vicinity of Boscombe Down in the build-up to the crash of 26 September. Only weeks before, the Salisbury Times newspaper reported the following concerning an incident practically on the doorstep of Boscombe Down. A green flying saucer hovered beside the A303 road at Deptford last week, according to a lorry driver who rushed to Salisbury Police Station in the early hours of the morning. The man banged on the station door in Wilton Road at 1:30 a.m. on Thursday after spotting the saucer suspended in midair. He was 100% convinced it was a UFO, said Inspector Andy Shearing. The man said it was bright green and shaped like a triangle with rounded edges. Other drivers had seen it and were flashing their car lights at him. A patrol car took the lorry driver back to the spot, but there was no trace of the flying saucer. Inspector Shearing said police had been alerted about similar sightings in the same area in the past. Then there was the crash itself. The first real indications that something extraordinary had occurred came from 2 highly respected sources: Air Force's monthly magazine and the British Sunday Telegram newspaper. Based upon the available evidence, the following picture can be constructed at 11 p.m. on 26 December 1994. A small twin-tailed aircraft crash-landed on the runway at Boscombe Down, whereupon an emergency containment operation was put into place. As luck would have it, at around the time of the crash, a number of aviation enthusiasts in the area had been listening in on airband radios and were aware that something unusual had occurred. The following day, several of those same enthusiasts drove to Boscombe Down, whereupon they were quickly apprehended by local police, who had set up roadblocks to keep away prying eyes. Before being ushered away, however, a number of people succeeded in catching a brief glimpse of the disabled craft, which was situated at the end of the runway. Aside from its twin fins, it was completely covered with tarpaulins. Air Force military commented. Shortly after the crash, an unmarked civilian registered CIA operated. Shortly after the crash, unmarked civilian registered, in parentheses, CIA operated, Boeing 737 and a similarly anonymous DC-8 visited 2 days later. The wreck was loaded on a C-5 Galaxy and flown to Air Force Plant 42 at Palmdale, California. The secrecy surrounding the incident has led to speculation that the aircraft involved was a TR-3A, the existence of which the U.S. government has yet to officially acknowledge. Since the TR-3A was rumored to be a roughly triangular-shaped craft, there was a strong possibility that it was also a TR-3A that was seen only weeks previously in the early hours of the morning. Lost my place, damn. Damn, I really lost my place. Since the TR-3A was rumored to be a roughly triangular-shaped craft, there was a strong possibility that it was also a TR-3A that was seen only weeks previous in the early hours of the morning near the A303 road, which runs close to Boscombe Down. However, things were not quite the black and white. George Wingfield, who was educated at Eton College and had worked for the Royal Greenwich Observatory and at IBM UK Ltd., had the following to say on the case. If what the lorry driver saw in August was a black manta, the nickname supposedly given to the TR-3A, it must have vertical hovering capabilities similar to the Harrier and also be able to operate silently. Despite much speculation, no one has ever suggested such capabilities for the TR-3A, and at present we can only regard what was seen at Deptford as an unidentified flying object. Meanwhile, the Ministry of Defense was actively denying that anything unusual had occurred at Boscombe Down. In a letter to Third Stone Magazine, MOD spokesperson Kerry Philpott wrote, "In response to your inquiry, I am not aware of an aircraft crash on Salisbury Plain on the evening of 26th September 1994. However, I am aware of a press report alleging a crash at Boscombe Down Airfield on the same evening. Staff at Boscombe Down have confirmed that there was no crash on the 26th December, and the only flying which took place out of Boscombe Down that evening was the launch of 2 Royal Navy Sea King helicopters in support of an exercise. But this did not square with data uncovered subsequent to the crash by Air Force's Monthly. The Boscombe Down incident aircraft is designated ASTRA, which is an acronym for Advanced Stealth Technology Reconnaissance Aircraft. No doubt more controversial of all is that Astra is believed to be the March 5th Plus hypersonic SR-71 replacement, most commonly referred to until now as Aurora. There seems no doubt that Air Force's monthly magazine was on the right track. However, there were still outstanding questions. What was the strange object seen hovering near Boscombe Down only weeks previously? What was it that prompted Police Inspector Andy Shearing to comment that police had been alerted about similar sightings in the area in the past? The conclusion would seem to be that even if the object that crashed on Boscombe Down's runway on the night of 26 December 1994 was the Astra/Aurora, there were potentially even stranger aerial vehicles being employed in the vicinity of the base, and possibly still are. Hepton Hill Incident, Cotswald, England, October 1994. According to residents of Church Lench and Norton, just north of the Cotswolds England on 31st October 1994, a barrel-like object was seen to descend at a speed into a field at nearby Hepton Hill. The military quickly sealed off the area and issued stern warnings to dissuade those who might try to uncover the truth surrounding the event. With great speed, the unidentified object was loaded aboard a Royal Navy truck which departed for destinations unknown. Questions were put to the Royal Air Force and the Fleet Air Arm. Both issued strong denials of involvement in either the crash or recovery of the unknown object at Hepton Hill. One witness who was able to confirm the reality of the crash, however, was Paul Brooke of Norton, who likened the object to a 40-gallon drum. There were several fire engines and lots of police here, Brooke said. The area was cordoned off and people were stopped from entering the field. Then, at about 8 that night, the object was taken away by a Royal Navy vehicle with a police escort at the front and back. Perhaps the most carefully phrased statement came from Inspector Mike Rowlands of the Eversham Police. I can't categorically say that it did not happen, but my investigations have revealed that it was a bale of straw that was on fire and which was put out by the fire brigade. The reports of something falling from the sky may either be hoaxes or somebody may have seen something and come to the wrong conclusion. To what Paul Brooke encountered, do they think we are mad around here? And, yep, that's it for today.